Welcome back to Open Your Eyes, and we're now venturing off into our first segment for the morning. It's actually a COVID-19 update is what we're doing, and the update comes in the lines of having the Commissioner of Police in with us on the quarantine measures enforced, that is being enforced. The Compol is in with us, Chester Williams. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
And I tell you what, it's nice.
Yes,
yeah. We've been off it. It's nice to have you in, sir.
Yes. Yeah.
So, this is definitely one to hit home. One of the things that we spoke about this morning, and Marlene said it perfectly, that this is our time to be heroes. This is when we will see how close the relationship with the police, Belize Police Department, and the public at large. Because the public is being told that from this time to this time, you need to be in your home, and from this time to this time, if you are an essential worker, you need to be at work. Sir, once again, good morning, and let's venture off there. What does this mean for our country? What does it mean to have a state of emergency? What is that?
Well, basically, the state of emergency would start with the Prime Minister advising the Governor General to declare a state of emergency based on Section 18 of the Belize Constitution, which provides 3 different circumstances under which a state of emergency can be declared.
Okay.
One will be in a state of war. We're not in a state of war. 2, if there is some situation that is threatening the public safety, as the case may be. And then the 3rd one would be like what we had done recently with the gangs that had gone to prison. And the AG ministry then draft the proclamation that goes to the Governor General for his signature. And with the proclamation will come the regulations. The regulations are going to outline what powers will be given to the security forces in order to ensure that the objectives of the state of emergency is achieved. And so we are still awaiting the regulation. I believe it was completed, drafted yesterday, and should be signed today by the Governor General, because you would know that it also needs to be gazetted in order for it to become law. And so the final process or processes is being done now today with a view to ensure that come midnight tonight we're on good legal footing to be able to proceed on with the state of emergency.
Which is why the information today is so important. And the three elements of the state of emergency that we need to understand and have the public understand as best as possible. 1 is the curfew, 2 is the list of essential workers, and 3 would be the allowment for movement during the time, during the day, what people can be allowed to go out and do. So let's start off first with the one that seems to be the strictest, the curfew time.
Well, the curfew will be from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. And it is expected that no one except for essential workers who will be in the course of their employment should be out on the streets.
And course of employment means they're out doing their job or going to work.
Between those particular times. And those are persons like police, the military, medical workers, maybe the man who services the ATM from the banks. BL linesman might need to come out to fix some blackout situation. And with that, when it comes to those persons, other than the security forces, they'll need to have a pass. Right? So what is being done is that the businesses in respective districts are hereby advised to submit the list of those persons they expect will be out during the curfew hours to the officer commanding that district. Then the officer commanding that district is going to send those names to me, providing that they are vetted first, because we want to ensure that they're not putting anybody's name on the list. We need to ensure that whoever appears on the list do work at that establishment and do provide such service. Once that list is sent to me and it is properly vetted, we then prepare the pass, and then it is pass will be signed by the Minister of National Security. And then the pass will be sent back to the respective district for distribution to those business establishments who had applied. But again, in terms of the curfew hours, it is critical for everybody to remain at home.
Yes.
And do not come out unless there's a need for you to come out that you'll be able to justify. Again, any ordinary person may be allowed to come out, providing that it is an emergency situation. Maybe you have someone at home who is ill. You might need to rush that person to the hospital.
Yes.
So that again will be permissible because it's an emergency situation. But outside of that, then we do not expect that people are going to be out on the streets, and we are hoping, as you have said, that the public is going to adhere to the instructions and do all they can in order to ensure that we achieve the spirit of the state of emergency.
Will these be on a checkpoint basis, or the police force will be circling the streets
Yes.
of every municipality?
We'll be patrolling the streets of the municipalities, and in some areas we'll be having members of the military with us. But again, that is not to
Cause an alarm.
show force that we want to be brutal.
Yeah.
We want to be able to execute this with as least force as necessary, or none at all. And that will be dependent on how the public reacts to the state of emergency, whether or not they're going to abide or not. Because you know that we must do what needs to be done as the security forces to ensure that the spirit is achieved.
Of course.
I have said to my officers that the role that we play is very, very important in order to stop the spread of the virus.
Yes.
If we fail at what we're doing, then the virus will spread and get out of control.
Yes.
So containment is very important, and we have a task to ensure that there is containment by virtue of disallowing people from being on the street, interacting with each other, and then have the virus pass from person to person. So we must do all we can with a view to ensure we keep our people and country safe.
Now, one of the quarantine regulations under the previous quarantine orders also spoke of no groups larger than 10 unless you live in the same household. Is that also something that will be continue to be enforced?
Yes. Under the regulation, it will have that no person shall gather in groups of 10 in any private or public space.
Okay.
Then it goes on to say, providing that in a private setting, if you can gather in groups of 10 or more, providing though that all those persons are from that household. If
So you
there's-
live there?
Yes. If there's one person within that group who is not from that household, then you will be in violation.
How do you determine that?
Well, you ask questions. And then in terms of the public, now you must not be in groups of 10 or more. And if you're in groups of 10 or less, you must ensure you maintain the social distance.
Yes.
So even though you may be in groups of maybe 9 or maybe 2, and you're not maintaining social distance, then you're in violation.
So you mean if you see two people hugging up the lighthouse, you break them up?
Yes,
I'm just thinking.
they can go and hug up home.
But going back to it though, have you been getting reports? Because sometimes we see posts online where people are talking about they're seeing a gathering next door, they're seeing people hosting barbecues or a get-together at their home. So they feel that they're at home, so they're safe. Do you
Well,
get reports like these, and
Yes.
how do people make reports?
Yeah, we do get calls about gatherings at homes, and we do respond, and we appreciate the calls.
Of course.
Some of them, when they do respond, they are family members. They're socializing among themselves, and that is okay. If it is that we find someone within the gathering who is not from there, then we would tell that person to leave, and then we warn the crowd.
Okay.
But again, I have said to my officers, we have done enough warning. By now, people should be able to understand what the law is.
Yeah.
And we need to now progress beyond warning. And that's the reason why you have seen we have made a number of arrests in terms of persons who have acted in violation of the law. And we're going to continue to do that.
From what you've been enforcing so far, in terms of the municipalities, who's been the hardest? I'd imagine Belize City, given the population density. But talk to us about what's happening in other municipalities.
I think Dangriga is the most challenging.
Okay.
And I guess it has a lot to do with the culture.
Yeah.
You'll find that people still want to have wakes. Even when it comes to funerals, they still want to have large gathering. And they have an affinity for the beach, right? They want to be on the beaches, you know, and so we have some really challenging time in Dangriga, and we're hoping that moving forward we'll be able to see less and less of that occurring. And again, the people of Dangriga have been very cooperative in terms of giving us information when they see it occurring, because not everybody agree with it or want to see it happen.
Yeah.
So people who are concerned, they normally give us information and we respond and do what we need to do.
How do
But
people contact the department? I mean, is it
for
through
now-
the tips line? You just call
For now, we
your-
advise them to call the local police station number.
Okay.
But again, I guess I am the hotline because everything comes to me. And so I'm overwhelmed with information from all over the country on WhatsApp, Facebook, text messages, every kind of way they could reach me. I am getting this information. And when I do get them, I try not to ignore, I try to respond to people. And I would normally take the information, post it on our COVID-19 response blog for the respective area to deal with it. Then I get the feedback from them, and I provide feedback to the persons who would give the information. So it's a lot.
So the most strictest time, as I mentioned, is the 8 p.m. to 5 a.m.
Yes.
And I know there were some questions posed yesterday where the Attorney General spoke of, well, we'll consider or we'll look into things along those lines. I know the cyclists are asking if they can still go out and ride. Other people who may feel that they have to get to their farms or need to commute, things along those lines.
Yes, and I do agree with what the Prime Minister said, that we cannot classify every business as essential, because then we'll be defeating the purpose of what we're trying to achieve. And so in terms of those establishments that are deemed essential, we have to, as best as we can, curtail it. But at the same time, too, we must ensure it is done in a way that we do not cut off the supply chain for people, because people still need to survive. And so it is with that spirit that some consideration has been given to certain establishments. But again, cycling, riding a bike is not essential. Going to your farm, we need the supply chain to continue. And so you can go to your farm. But with hope that you'll do that between the non-curfew hours, which is from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. You'll be able to achieve all of that during that time. And so we have to, as best as we can, ensure that those places that are non-essential, that they remain non-essential. We cannot bring them into the realm of essential.
All of a sudden.
Yeah, you understand me? So,
Yeah.
I think one of the, and I want to step back a little, because I think this is where we might find some problem. It's not clear to a lot of people, because we're brothers, we're going to a store to get something. We might not, because we feel close to each other, we might not adhere to the 3 feet or more. You'll find arguments there. How do we plan to quell this? Because I want for it to be as clear as possible and on record, so people could understand, because you hear it a lot.
I would expect, and I do understand a situation like that, because you would have come from the same household.
Yes.
You're going back to the same household. You'll be together in the same household near each other. And so I could understand that, but we still want to ask that when you're out in public, please maintain the distance, the required distance between each other, right? I'm sure that if you were to be charged and you go to court and you explain to the magistrate that you're from the same household, you were working together, there may be some leniency, but that does not mean that you do not breach the law, because the law says being out in public and not maintaining the social distance.
Yes.
So the fact that you're out in public, whether you are boyfriend and girlfriend, wife or husband, brother and sister, you have to maintain a social distance.
So let me go back to the other portions of the day. So there's a list of essential services that we're yet to see. You know, there's a traditional list of essential services, but now it's been expanded for this particular time. And so you can understand that people have a lot of questions about who can go out and work between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. and who cannot. No, it's the other way, 5 a.m. till 8 p.m. So what can you tell us about that?
Well, the AG went through the list yesterday, and as he said, the list will still be looked at in terms of finalizing who will be classified as essential workers. But you have those, the essential workers, and you have non-essential workers who are now being brought into the fray. And let's look at, for example, the fire service, medical, police, military,
Yes. Utilities.
utilities, the port. Those are essential workers because the gangs at the port do work sometimes until late hours, discharging barges or ships. Now, you have, for example, now stores and supermarkets, gas stations, mechanic shops,
Hardware stores.
hardware stores. These are things that people need to be able to ensure that they continue the necessities of life.
Of course.
And so with that, they are brought into the fray. But even though you have been brought into the fray of being an essential establishment for now, it is not a carte blanche that you can just move around how you want. The persons who work at those establishments will only be allowed to be on the streets when you're going to work or leaving work. They cannot be wandering around. Or maybe if they're doing something
An errand
in
related to
line
work.
with the employment that they're engaged in, then they'll be allowed. So it is not to say that, you know, because you work at these places, you'll be able to roam around as you feel like. That is not going to be the case. And the police is going to stop you. The police are going to question you. And I would hope that patience is exercised and people don't look at it and say the police is harassing me and why they want to know why I'm going and this, that. We have an objective to achieve and we must do what we can to achieve that objective, and we hope that the wider public work with us to achieve that objective.
You know, during the curfew time, passes are expected. During the daytime,
Yes.
are passes expected as well?
During the day, no, but we're still going to question you because we want to
So
ensure.
is it good to have an employee
Yes.
ID at least?
Yes. So that when the police question you, you're going to work, you can show your ID.
Yeah.
I'm going to work.
But you know,
Or a letter of employment
Yeah.
would
Yes,
also
something
work.
that would be
Sure.
perfect, especially at the start. But I must say, this is where it works for both of us in terms of the approach, because this is where a lot of the flare-up happens. In terms of how the police question you, they want to know my business, yes, but then they ask me in a good way. So, and that's where I wanted to ask you, because how are we going to enforce this, especially to those that we meet outside? Is it going to be, boy, where you going?
Well, we have
Sir, or,
no.
because this is where we always
Yeah.
see things flaring up.
We have explained to our officers that respect is very important, and not just because we have certain powers under the law means that we must abuse, or means that we must look at people as being inferior. We still need to ensure that we maintain respect for each other, and so the approach of the police is critical.
Yeah.
To have police officers calling a person who is their elder boy or girl is totally unacceptable. And even if they're not your elder, you have to respect people.
Respect.
And so we don't expect that our officers are going to be harsh on people or disrespecting people in that respect, calling them boy or girl. Sir, ma'am, may I have a word with you? You know that at this time you cannot move around. Can I know where you're going? What are you going to do? And if the person give an explanation that is reasonable and falls within the scope of persons who can move around, then by all means, then allow the person to go about their business.
You know, allow me to find out more about this particular situation, because there's quite a bit of discretionary power that will be placed on your individual officers.
Yeah.
And you are very well aware that they will act based on their own personalities or experience on the ground. What has been communicated to them? Has there been a specific protocol or a discussion as to how you will approach and what type of answers will be accepted versus taking action?
Yes, the commanders have been spoken to, and you know, at a time like this, I cannot meet with all the police.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, so I would communicate through the commanders on the ground, and they are then tasked to ensure that information trickles down to those persons who work under their command.
Yeah.
And I have always been harping to them that respect goes both ways.
Yes.
And even if it is that the person that you approach is being disrespectful, that does not mean that you have to go to that person level.
Yeah.
You can still maintain proper decorum And you would find that with time, the person who may be disrespectful may look at him or herself and say, but you know what, I am the fool here.
Yeah.
Because here I am, going off at the police, and the police just maintain his cool. You know, so we have to ensure that there is that level of professionalism, and that is going to be essential in order to get the support of the public.
Yeah.
I know, being out there speaking to people, for the most part, people do agree that we need a state of emergency. So I do not anticipate that we're going to have widespread opposition to what is being done. So I think that going through the 30 days should be good for us.
I'm grateful that you spoke of the professionalism, and that's one aspect, but it's also in the reasons that people may give for being out, because while we talked about essential workers or new essential workers who will be allowed to get to work, maybe do an errand for work and go back, there's also the possibility for everyday citizens to go out and carry out necessary
to
function.
Shop, to go to the doctor,
banking,
to go to the bank. Yeah, there's several things that they can do. So we are working on a list of things.
Can you go visit family?
No.
No, I mean, this is why it's necessary. If I say I'm going to go am I going to go pick up food from my mother?
No, cook at home. I know some can cook, but I hope you don't fall in that category, Marlene.
Now I will start. But no, you have a number of reasons that I'm going to go take my child to the babysitter. I'm going to go take my child to the babysitter.
Well, if it is that you work, and maybe there may be a single mother who is an essential worker. She needs to go to work. The child cannot go with her. Common sense should prevail.
No, I agree.
The child will have to go to the babysitter.
But there's a lot that people don't know, and we have to understand. So we talked about moving. You can be going home from work, picking up something if you forget it, maybe. But these are the types of situations that your officers will be confronted with, and will have to make a judgment call. You know, is this person just giving me bull to get out because they have cabin fever? Or is this a legitimate reason? And so the terms as to which your officers will work under will be most important.
It is going to be, and the truth is it is going to be frustrating.
It is.
And I would just hope that the officers will be able to manage the frustration and stress that is going to come with it. Because sometimes people tend to look at the police as if we're non-humans. They don't expect that sometimes we ourselves are overwhelmed with situations, and it might cause you to react in a certain way towards people that you would not normally do. And people will look at it and say, "What about the police can't and bad at me?" You know, intention. You know, that's how it goes sometimes.
We do understand, and the country should understand, that this is a national emergency for the entire country. We've got over 200 villages across this country as well. And I'm so glad that you're here to answer these questions, because afterwards, you don't want for people to say, I never know. So, will your force be in every village across this country?
Yes, we will ensure that we visit every corner of the country where people reside. In order for us to achieve our end state, we must do what needs to be done. And so we'll do that. We'll be complemented with some BDF so that we can stretch our resources as best as we can. Officers who are on short leave have been recalled back to duty, and we're trying as best as we can to do this without putting too much strain on the officers. So we still maintain our shift rotation.
So the shift rotations have not changed?
No, we maintain that our officers get the 2 days off, and we try to keep them that way. To cut days off and change shift rotation may cause some inconvenience to officers. We know they need to go home to their families after a hard day's work.
Of course.
So we're trying as best as we can to not go into too much things that will cause undue strain on them.
Well, I mean, this was my question, because it does take a lot of manpower. While you're expecting the streets to be empty, the only way to be sure of it is if you're out there checking. So it requires a substantial amount of from trucks to be able to move around, your motorcycles,
bicycles,
whether it's foot patrol, and of course, most importantly, the people. how have you been able to get sufficient people to be able to ensure that across the country everyone's adhering to the regulations?
Well, we have the officers who would normally work in the offices, 8 to 5. They have now been placed into the relief system to be able to boost the relief and have more manpower.
Yeah.
And that has helped us. Then the additional BDF that will come will also give us more manpower. So with that, we can continue our current shift rotation, giving our officers 2 days off so that they can go home to their families and spend time with them as well. If it is that we have the officers just working, and no time for themselves, no time for their families, then they are going to get frustrated. They may report sick and different things.
Yeah.
So we have to ensure we keep the morale of the officers up.
So 2 concerns come to mind. One, a lot of your officers do commute, and we know the issues with public transportation. What's happening in that front?
Well, the main issue we're looking at is the officers who have to come to work at night time. But
even during the day, the schedule has changed. I mean, has been reduced significantly.
What we have done is that we have a bus that we have that we're using currently, and that bus brings the officers from the west who works in the night, and take home those who come off at night, so that there is no hitchhiking.
Yeah.
We have a contract with a bus company in Orange Walk that ferries the officers from Belize City to the north. And again, for those officers they pay, I think, a reduced price. The one for the west, it is no payment because the bus currently is being used by the government. And so we provide the fuel, we provide a driver, and so there is no need to pay. In the month of April, hopefully early April, we're going to get the bus that we have paid for long ago. When we do get that bus will be assigned to the west. And then the loaner we have in the west right now, the owner have said to me that if it is that we want to continue to use it, he'll allow us to use it until this is over. So I'll then take the bus we have in the west and put that in the north, so that we can have officers in the north and west coming to work free of cost. Now,
and not worrying about a bus schedule.
Exactly. We do encourage our officers, though, that in time like this, if it is that you can move to Belize City, find a place to stay while you're working, then you can do that.
Yeah.
When you go on the afternoon, you go home. So with that way you reduce the amount of traveling that you will have. And
that's an added cost. That's rent.
Yes. No, but what we have done as well, we have places that we have given them to stay.
Okay.
A friend have given me 2 houses that I have given to the officers in Belize that they can use. We also have the police canteen, where the canteen used to be, or even the training room. We can put beds there for them to be able to stay.
Yeah.
So there are things that we're trying to do for them that they can stay here without a cost. And some of them are taking advantage of it, but we know that we'll not be able to accommodate all of them. So we still understand that there will be some who will have to commute. Yeah. And we try to make provision for those.
Okay, so that was the first question in terms of transportation. The second is protective gear. We don't know who carries the virus, and your officers are frontline personnel.
Yes, and I have said that as much as everybody say the healthcare workers, the police officers are more exposed than the healthcare workers. And it is important that while we ask them to do a certain job, that we provide the PPEs for them, that they need to perform the relevant job. Yes, we don't need the type that the doctors use. No. We need the more simpler ones, the masks, the gloves, and we have done our best to procure those for officers. So through the government of Belize, we have purchased some. We have received some on donations, and we have some that is in procurement. We're awaiting them to come in. But we try as best as we can to ensure that the officers have the gloves and the masks. Now,
and they've been taught how to use it properly?
Yes, we know the protocol or the advice given by our Ministry of Health, and even I am a person, I watch the CDC a lot, and I also watch WHO. What is being said. That is where I get my information from, along with Dr. Manza. And what they're saying is that the mask is not something that you must wear right throughout the day.
No, it has to be changed.
But police officers have that sense of security that they need to wear the mask. And that is how they feel safe. Yeah. So I'm not going to take that away from them. If it is that they want to wear it, then they wear it. And we do as best as we can to provide for them. And so
if they want it, it is there.
It is there, yes. But we still give them. Now, when officers go to postmortem, Now they have to dress like the doctors. So we also have those PPEs as well for postmortems.
Okay.
Because we want to ensure when our officers go to these postmortem that they're well protected.
Yeah,
So
of course.
we get the full regate for them for postmortem purposes, or when they respond to any situation of a sudden death, right? So that to ensure that they can protect themselves when dealing with dead persons.
Yeah.
Well, Kumpal, you know, the reality of this thing is that, especially for the start, it's going to be hard.
Yes.
There'll be a lot of people who will not be adhering to it. Space in every municipality to house these people that you may pick in, and for them to be safe. How are we going to deal with that? Because there might be overcrowding. How are we going to deal with
Overcrowding in terms of
this? In terms of
detained?
Detainment.
Yes,
Well,
detainment.
I am hoping, Jan, that we don't have to reach that stage. For me, this is not about locking down people. This is more about people understanding the nature of what is happening
Yes.
and comply. And I want to believe that, for the most part, my Belizean people are going to adhere. There may be a few who may not adhere, and those persons will be dealt with.
Yeah.
Because we have to ensure that what needs to be done is done.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we're going to have a challenge in terms of knowing where to put them. The good thing is that the other type of, the criminal nature of society is currently calm. And so the cell blocks are available for persons who breach the curfew law, persons who breach the quarantine law, and the social distance, as well as the business places that fail to adhere to the requirements as stipulated in the regulation.
Excellent.
Now, that's a valid point. I think if you get to the point of detainment, but I mean, what is your course of order in terms of enforcing? Is it warning people, sending them home, a sense of kind of getting them to adjust in the beginning, and a second offense gets them detained?
Well, I have said we have surpassed the warning stage, and we are now arresting people. Over the 24 hours, we have a few arrests again.
What's the potential
what
penalty?
we do, well, they have those who pled guilty in Punta Gorda, and they were charged $1,000 each. But again, going to the issue of keeping people in custody, my directive to the officers is that you bring the person, you charge, and give bail right away. So we don't keep you in custody,
Yeah.
right? If it is that you're a second offender, then we're going to keep you in custody.
Clear enough.
Yes.
So you're not issuing any warning to anyone
No.
at this point in
At
time?
this time, no.
Warning has been levied.
Yeah.
Now, we saw in San Pedro where they've had the first example of 1 week of state of emergency before us. And there were people moving around, and I think perhaps the most concerning photo was the people standing in line to buy Bolido on a Sunday. Now, grocery stores are listed as one of the places that may be open, which leaves many to assume that the Bolido and the gaming institutions will keep running. What's going to happen on Sunday when people want to go buy their number?
Well,
Valid
if the
point.
government says that Bolido can continue to play, it means that you can go and buy Bolido. It's just that when you're there, you have
So
to
it's
ensure.
a valid reason to go out on a Sunday and the police stops me and I say, I'm going to go buy Bolido.
If the Bolido shop is open,
They said grocery store. They haven't clarified things like
Gaming or
Bolido.
whatever,
yeah.
yes.
Well, I would hope that they would put a ban on gaming. If there's no ban on gaming, then
Well, the casinos are closed, the bars are closed, all of these other things are closed.
yeah. And I think I heard an announcement last night that the drawing is now going to be at 7.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I
It's
heard
at
last
7?
night. Yes.
Okay.
So which
So
means
it's earlier.
that they're still operating. So
Well, we've not had a clear directive,
Yeah.
and that's why we need to see the regulations to know
Yeah.
for sure. Because how many people will tell you on a Sunday that they're going to go buy
Yeah.
Bolido? And
I do agree, man. And I'll have that talk with the
Yeah.
AG.
Okay.
And
Go buy
maybe we can
chicken.
make some adjustment there. Yeah.
so, going back to the point that people can go out and do essential things like banking, supermarket, medical visit, buying lottery. These are essentials.
Let's hope
if,
buying lottery
if
will be
that's
out.
the case, if that's the case, what am I expected? Is it a simple conversation when I go out and the police stops me and I say, I just want to run to the supermarket to pick up some things to cook?
Yes.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
simple conversation.
The police might say, you have money? Because people might say,
Well,
I'm
no,
going
you
for
know
shop.
people might
Yeah.
try to do all kinds
And
of
so
things.
the police might request some proof that you're going to buy. So, and again, they won't be abusing their powers. They're just ensuring that you're out for the reason for which you're saying you're out.
Yeah.
Right, so,
So anytime between 5 a.m. to like 7 a.m., you can't go jog.
no, just to clear it.
Poor John.
I know.
It's his birthday.
Happy birthday, John.
Thank
You were born on a good day.
And talk about us about some of the other areas of where there's uncertainty. Food vendors, for example,
Yeah.
on the street sides.
That's a no-no.
That's a no?
Yep.
Even if they're doing deliveries or just pickup orders? Because technically, your tacos that pick up.
Because the regulation is saying restaurants
Yeah.
for delivery service only.
Okay.
A food vendor is not a restaurant.
Yeah.
It's a very ticklish situation.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
I cannot give a clear answer on that right now. I would want to think, though, that if it is that you have a food vendor who is cooking at home and persons want to go and pick up the food from there, that it should be no difficulty. It's just like going to a restaurant and pick up food, I would want to think. But I will have to have that discussion with the AG and see how that is going to play out. But again, we have to ensure that with whatever we do is done in a way that we can limit the amount of persons on the streets.
And also across the board,
Yeah.
because what you may be enforcing here in Belize City may not be enforced in Orange Walk, for example,
No, it's
or in
across the
Punta
board.
Gorda.
It's across
I
the board.
agree, but maybe your PG officers are saying to the one tacos vendor, yes, you can sell,
Then
and
if-
then in Belize City we're saying
If
no.
I get the whims of that, then
Yeah.
I'm sorry for him.
No, I'm not saying that they're breaking your orders. What I'm
No,
saying
they'll
is
be.
that when there is
They're
this
not breaking my
gray
orders, they're
area
breaking the law.
of whether a food, well, it could be rice and beans, it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
tacos.
Yeah.
Whether the rice and beans stall can go out and sell or not, because we don't know if it's a restaurant or it falls under food service. That's where we really have to be as clear as
I
possible.
am going to punish Marlene because I depend on my tacos, but that's how it goes.
Well, it might be a good thing because we're not allowed to exercise, and, which is actually advice from the medical professionals to keep you sane during this time. But coming back with all serious, because it is very new for us,
Yeah,
and we
it
want to
is.
be as clear as possible. So we spoke of some of the street side vendors. I know we've gotten quite a few questions coming in. Construction workers are asking, they have to
Yes,
leave early.
they can go to work.
So if they leave before that 5 a.m. hour, because some of them do have
they
to
must
commute.
leave at 5 a.m.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you communicating with the public transportation system if they're leaving after these hours?
That is a discussion that is being had at this
Yeah.
time, yes.
Yeah.
Because let me give you an example. If I have to catch the bus at 5 a.m., I have
To
to
get
be
here
at the
for-
bus stop before 5
5.
a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that is be understood.
Yeah. It
Person
goes
going to
back
get
to
your
those
bus.
discretionary
Yeah.
powers that we're talking about.
Yes.
What other gray areas do you think that we need to really be able to clarify for people?
Well, I think that we have covered most of it. The other issue that I think we need to cover is the issue as it pertains to the spreading of false rumors, which has become common,
Yeah.
and the disobeying of the quarantine order. If it is that a person is under quarantine, we expect that that person is going to isolate him or herself.
Yes.
Do not come into contact with nobody until your quarantine period is over.
Yes.
And I have said that we need to enforce the quarantine law, that if anybody act in violation thereof, that those persons be prosecuted so that others do not make a mockery of
Yes.
the system.
Yes.
When you have a person who is under quarantine and a person continues to move around, then that person endangers the wider public.
Yes.
And we don't want that to occur.
Is there a communication between you and the Ministry of Health? If there's someone who enters the country and they've been told to self-isolate before this mandatory period that started this week, is that list handed over to the police?
At this time, no. And I have discussed with Mr. Manzanero, the doctor, and I've said to him that I would like for us to be informed. And not just to be able to monitor, but also for the safety of our officers.
Of course.
Because we go to do searches at homes, and we don't want that our officers go and do search at a home where there's someone being quarantined, and then our officers are exposed, like what happened yesterday. We went and conduct searches at 2 houses, and those 2 houses, we happened to come across persons who were on quarantine.
Wow.
Right? And that is how we get to know of
Hosting get-togethers,
yes,
right?
Yeah, and in
So
one
clearly
case,
when we think people understand
yes,
how this works,
yes.
it's not the case.
In one case, one of the person was socializing with others, which is wrong.
Yeah.
And came back from the epicenter
Yes.
in the
Right?
U.S.
So we're looking at that particular case. We're trying to get certain information from the Ministry of Health in terms of when he came in, who gave him the quarantine, the order to quarantine, and once we get those reduced in writing, then we're going to charge him because he should ensure that he comply with the quarantine requirements.
Yeah.
Right? And if it is that, even if it is his girlfriend or his child, they are not to come into contact with him.
For 14 days.
Yes. You know, so we're looking at that particular case.
So if I know that my neighbor is in a quarantine and I see them moving around, I can call the
Yes,
police
we
and
get a
say,
lot of calls.
this is
Yes.
happening.
We get a lot of calls with that, lot.
Okay.
Because people are concerned.
Yeah.
Of
You know,
course.
so when they see you, they call the police.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we get those calls. Yeah. But like I said, I would wish that we do get the list. And I could understand the medical perspective. You don't want it in the wider public.
Yeah.
But at least the police, and not every police, certain police officers should know.
Yeah.
So that we'll be able to put things in place to be able to monitor. And I noticed on social media, some were saying, but why the police are monitor quarantine people? That is a minor thing. They need to be. That is the most essential thing.
Yeah.
If you don't monitor those persons who are in quarantine, if we have seen that the two of the three cases we have had are persons who came into the country and were supposed to be on quarantine.
Yeah.
And we have seen in San Pedro where one of them failed to adhere and then later on infected her mother.
Yeah.
You know, so if it is that we want to deal with the issue, then ensuring that there is compliance with the quarantine requirements
Yeah.
is very, very essential.
Yeah. And there are a number of people under quarantine, so I do agree.
Yes,
You should
yeah.
have that list and perhaps in your patrols ensure that
Yeah.
nothing is happening there. So we've gotten, you know, the producers monitoring online, so we've gotten some specifics. What about people who maintain yards or gardeners? Are they allowed to work?
No.
Move around and work?
No. You
Domestics?
can clean your own yard.
Domestic services?
Domestic service, if you're at home, you should be able to clean your house.
Okay. The third one, fishermen.
Fishermen is not on the list.
But how will people get the fish?
Well, that's a discussion we might need to have. Like the AG said yesterday, the list is not exhausted. We could start now with what we have, and if
Yeah.
we see that there's a need to make adjustment as we go along, then that will be done. But I
Okay.
do understand the concerns of fishermen.
Of course.
Well,
And
they
as
leave
well as the wider
early.
public, you know, that we
But
need
that's
fish,
an easy
you know,
one to
so,
check
yeah.
because your fishermen should have a
Yes.
fishing license.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
There you go.
and they will need fish when the
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Good Friday come around because
Yeah.
we do have Easter in April. Now the concern I have in looking at just the general safety, there's some people who, we spoke of social distancing, even the police officers, we have seen them crammed in trucks.
Well, I have issued a directive where that is concerned.
Okay.
That only 4 officers must be in the front or in the cab of any police vehicle.
Okay.
2 at the front, 2 at the
Two at
back.
the back.
That has been issued to them. And they have also been told if they need to cough or sneeze, they must put their head outside, put their elbow, and cough or sneeze. So we are doing what we can internally with a view to ensure that we protect our officers.
And even at checkpoints, because
Yes.
sometimes there's a group that is gathered there.
Yes, at checkpoints, again, I've said to officers that when a vehicle arrives at a checkpoint, you don't take the person's license. Ask the person to hold the license.
Present it to you.
Yes, and you hold it in such a way that you can read
see it, yeah.
if it is expired or not. And if there's no need to hold the license, then don't hold it.
Yeah.
And with that, because we understand the complaints of the public that police wear gloves, touch his license, touch that one. So if one person may have had it, then it goes
And
on
you're
every
passing
license.
around. Yeah.
So to reduce that now, you hold a license to the police for the police to see. I saw a complaint on social media this morning and I've asked the person to tell me where it was occurring so it could be addressed.
Yeah.
We don't want the officers to be holding the license.
Okay. Just present it to them
Yes,
properly.
yeah.
Okay.
So there are a lot
Yeah.
of gray areas in between just from this conversation. And to be fair, we're having it without the actual document to be able to guide us. So I assume there'll be additional information that we
And
can
there
share
is
then.
the different government offices that is going to remain open.
Yeah.
And again, those are from 9 to 4 p.m. And again, those government workers will go to work. They will provide service. Internally, we are looking to see how we can skate back a bit on some of the services we're offering. I noticed that in some parts of the world, police have stopped dealing with minor complaints, right? And only deal with major complaints, and all with a view to ensure that there's no too much interaction between the police
the public
and public.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like police records, firearm licensing, we will make some adjustments internally with a view to ensure that we don't expose our officers to the virus.
Great.
So the producer is keeping us up to date with what people are asking online. One is asking about technology companies.
Technology companies, they're not essential, no.
So telecommunication would
Yes.
be the only one that would be
Yes.
listed. The other is asking about whether you will respond because people are at home. There's a lot of loud music being blasted and they want to call the police on issues like that.
I would want to think we're going to respond,
Okay.
right? We know that people may be at home, they need a peace and quietness.
Yeah.
And so we will try as best as we can to respond.
That's a form of torture, they used to use that to be exposed to loud music. But I want to come back to something very serious. People being confined in a home can be a wonderful experience for many, but you know the situation
Can be a
of
torturing
domestic
experience for some.
For some too.
But it's also a dangerous situation for many. You know the situation of domestic violence
Yes.
in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is a critical situation. I know the agencies that work in this area are concerned that people will be trapped at home with an abuser. Children may be trapped at home with an abuser. What's being done in terms of being able, some of the areas that you normally get called to ensure safety and that we don't have any unnecessary violence or loss of life during this time?
Well, we know that there may be an increase in domestic violence over the period.
Yeah.
And so our domestic violence unit is going to be prepared. Yes, I'm sure that we're not going to be as prepared as we'd want to be, but we'll do our best to ensure that we are. And we're hoping that if it is that there's any abuse, that the person being abused will be able to call, or if the person is not able to, the neighbor hear noise going on, whatever in the house, call us, and we are going to respond, because I know for the most part, the abuser may prevent the person being abused from making any phone calls.
Yes.
So we will rely on it. I want to ask the neighbors, if you see or hear something unusual in your neighbor house or yard, call us, let us know, and we're going to respond as well.
Okay.
Excellent.
Are minors allowed to be out at all during the course of the day?
No.
So if you want to
For
send
what?
your child to the shop during the daytime?
But I would hope that they don't send them.
Yeah.
There is no law, or the regulation does not include that persons on the street going to the shop cannot be minors. But I would hope that parents are not going to use the children.
Yeah.
The children curfew is in the night time, right? But we'd hope that parents are not going to allow the child to go to the shop or to be out on the streets.
Yeah.
And if it is that the child is found on a street without no purpose, then the parent is going to be dealt with.
Of course. So without a purpose, because there are single mothers out there, they're not able to move. Their eldest child is about 12 years old.
Yeah.
So
we'll have to look and see. But like I said, we need to ensure we do what we can to ensure the spirit of the legislation is achieved. Yeah.
All right, and your final message to people. It is a collective effort that we're all making. We are expected to stay home just to be able to ensure the health and safety of the majority. So we're hoping you don't have a lot of things to respond to, but what's your message to people in the meantime?
Well, I don't want to be as blunt as Dr. Cuellar. But
Seems to be quite catchy, actually.
I
People
do-
like
shirt,
it.
actually.
Yeah, I do love his message.
Yes.
And I will associate myself with it for now. But in addition to that, I would like to say to my Belizean people, this is not a matter of us against you. This is a collective effort that we all must engage in. What has been proposed to be done is being done with the best interest of the country of Belize at heart. And while, yes, we the police have the arduous task of ensuring that the spirit of the regulations are achieved, we will not be able to achieve it without your cooperation. And it is in that vein that we are asking to please work with us, adhere to the rules, adhere to the law, do not resist. And if that is done, then we will all be safe at the end of this. Like the Prime Minister and leader of opposition said, if it is that we comply and there is no further spread, then before 30 days we can be out of this.
Yeah.
So we'll stay in this as long as we, the people, allow it to occur. Because if we minimize movement, then we reduce the chance of spreading, and then our country can become COVID-19 free, and then we go back to some normalcy. And that is all I'm asking. I know it is going to be tough on some people, but try bear it out and hold strong, work with the police, work with the health workers, work with the military who will be working with us as well, in order for us to be able to do what needs to be done.
And work with yourself.
Yes, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And of course, we do hope that you at least put out some information, numbers people need to know, because it's best that they call the local station.
We're working on a hotline.
Okay.
Hopefully between today and tomorrow it will be installed at the EOC. And once that hotline is installed, then we'll be putting the numbers out there that persons can call.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for coming in, Commissioner. We do appreciate
Thank you.
it. And
You're
best of
welcome.
luck.
Thanks.
Stay safe.
Yeah.
We're going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll be back in a few. Stay tuned.